The last word is planes. It's on that bottom level. We've talked about grip, power, control. Now we're on planes. They've all interconnected, and I think we all know what we mean by planes. Thinking about breaking your toaster. I think that's one of the most common things. I've seen shirts about it. Everyone says get out of your toaster, but I think it connects to so many different things.
I love to talk about planes with a very specific exercise. It's very West Coast exercise, 27 points in space. Um, but it's pretty much the best. If you don't know about it, there's some YouTube videos on it, and maybe we'll do a video about it pretty soon. But it basically gives you a very clear language for what plane you're spinning on, and being able to say like you're at point one, which means you're at your top left corner, and it's not to your body, it's to the space that you're in, like to your little box. So everybody's point one is the same. Being able to talk about planes is another thing that will help make things look very sharp and clean. If everyone's spinning on the same plane, you can do it right. If you're tossing something on the wrong plane, you're not getting the skill. So being able to understand the plane is fundamental to a lot of skills, especially once you jump into tosses.
And then once you understand like which plane you're supposed to be spinning in, you have to figure out how do you get the equipment to be in that plane. So even when we're talking something as simple as drop spins, like drop spins on a flag, that's in your toaster, just up and down, vertical plane, pretty simple. But you'll see people sometimes they start like they'll hit their ankle or the flag's like really like tipped forward and backwards. So then understanding that it's like about your wrist alignment and making sure that your hands are in line and you're not pushing forward or pulling back or pressing your hand forward or back in the middle of the skill too, because that all of that will affect what plane your flag is spinning in, whether you mean for it to happen or not.
I'm thinking about a very specific student right now. I think we have all had those students that like you're like the plane, get in the plane, and they're like, what? So you make them stand up against a wall. I know everyone's done that, right? Like, how are you spinning? I do it on rifle all the time as well. So one time there was just a huge disconnect with the kid, and the only thing I had to say to like make that light bulb moment come out was, look, my hands whenever I'm in the plane are going to be lined up. When I'm not in the plane, my hands are uneven. Do you see that? And she was like, oh. And then her planes were fine from then on. So I think even if there's like a disconnect for those students, even that little basic information is so important on how your body is affecting that.
Yeah, I love being able to talk about planes and your body. In the mini clip we did about power, we talked about how power plays into catches. My inner physics nerd comes out when I talk about catches, because it's not just about like catching strong, it's about being aware of like the angle of your hand in relationship to the pole, because when you catch and it's rotating, the energy of the pole is going in a circle, so you're meeting it at an angle to that circle. The perpendicular point is going to give you the strongest catch.
Great.
So being aware of what plane not only like your flag is spinning on, but understanding where the energy of your flag is going can help you understand the angle that your arm needs to be at to catch something strongly.
Yes, science, absolutely.
I always call it physics with Holly. I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to get some color guard physics. And it's cool because, I mean, I'm going to nerd out on color guard physics for a second. But one of my favorite parts of teaching high schoolers, because most high schoolers don't learn physics, and if they do, it's like maybe junior or senior year if they're in a very specific science program. But it's so cool being able to teach people color guard physics when they're in middle school or high school, just being because you have this like language of talking about planes and rotations, and it puts it in a really concrete light. I love planes. I love color guard.
I love the fact that you call it physics with Holly, because I always say it's like science or something, and then I move on. Like I say those things, but it's not as professional. I need to start doing that.
I took a lot of physics classes in high school, so I was able to nerd out that way.
The other thing I like to do, just like to kind of experiment with planes in a different way. Like Tori, earlier you were saying, have somebody do drop spins up against the wall. If you're doing a skill that's totally in front of you and totally not letting go, like drop spins on flag, I'll actually have students like lay down on the floor.
Oh.
And then you have to like do the drop spins, but now gravity is pulling on you in a different way. So instead of just like, oh, my hand's below the other one, so it's down, you actually like have to fight to keep your flag now like level above your head so that you don't hit your face or your toes. And you know, usually we go slow at first so they can figure it out. But just even having like gravity affect you different can make you more aware of what's going on and how you're actually spinning, which you might not have noticed if you have been doing drop spins on flag for a long time. You're like, yeah, they're great. And you don't believe maybe that your hands actually aren't in line.
Yeah, it's really fun to, like, I'm thinking of like 45 tosses. I really do think that there's two versions of 45 tosses that people do across the country.
I'm
and
intrigued. Tell me more.
One drives me nuts, and one I think is the right way. But, you know, we all have our different versions. But I'm a big fan of like, you go through a flat to toss like on a 45 straight ahead of you. And a lot of people think that they're getting through that flat checkpoint. And really that flat checkpoint is just making sure your flag is going on the correct plane.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just like chuck it out and they're somewhere between the corner and straight ahead.
Yeah.
When they actually let go because they're not pulling, like going through the correct plane to get into a 45 release.
Yeah.
So they think like the whole intention of the 45 is straight ahead, but they're really releasing slightly to the side because they're not passing through the checkpoints. And it drives me crazy when I see the other version of the 45 toss.
You just blew my mind. I've always done it this way, but I think I now understand a little bit more of whenever a student's doing it wrong. I can kind of analyze that now. I like that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we could do like, I could do a whole 45-minute video on 45s, but it really comes down to like wrist placement and pulling up through the checkpoint versus just like pushing it out.
Yes.
But planes go into everything. You're never gonna have a clean 45 toss, any clean angle tosses, if you're going through different planes on your checkpoint.
You just reminded me of one more thing that has a lot to do with your body as well. So if your shoulders aren't in that 45, like it's going to adjust your flag as well. So your body plays a huge part in planes as well.
Oh, so true. The difference of like body placement in any choreography, like we could do a whole nother series of videos on cleaning, which we will. Because I can talk about it for forever. But if your body is facing a slightly different angle on a skill, it completely changes how the skill is done. There's some versions of a skill that are impossible if your body is facing slightly the wrong way, especially with stuff like rolls, like body rolls. If your shoulders are slightly tilted in a slightly incorrect way, the roll won't work. They're too picky.
Yes.
To be like 100% on body placement to get, and like planes on rolls. Like the way that I fix rolls when I have rolls in choreography, usually it's because the flag is passing through the wrong plane on the way up to connect with the body.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you fix that, they can do the roll.
I spaced out a little bit because you kept saying rolls and it made me hungry.
rolls. roll. Let's have some snacks. Okay.
Always.
So my favorite part about all of these, so we've talked about all of these base layers. We've talked about control. We've talked about grip. We've talked about power. And now we've talked about planes. But these are not standalone items. We talked about this in like the intro video. So if you're looking at like the overhead video, you heard us talk about this. But none of these skills can be practiced by themselves. Like, unless you are practicing it, like you're practicing grip with like a pencil. If you're spinning a piece of equipment, you are doing all 4 of the base layer of these. They're all intertwined. The techniques are never, then they never just work once. Some of them work a skill more than others. And in the curriculum that we have for purchase, we go into more depth in the skills. So we'll talk about flag drop spins, for example, and how grip and control and power and planes all play into that individual skill. We're also going to be publishing videos in the near future about how control, grip, power, and planes look in choreography. Because even with a drop spin, you have to be aware of the planes. You have to be aware of the power going into the rotation. You obviously are aware of how you're gripping the flag and where, and you have to be in control of the speed. So that, I mean, that's just drop spins, for example, but
not just that foundational level too. We can go way deeper. We're color guard nerds for sure.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. But yeah, like these are all intertwined, and that's what makes this language that we've built so interesting.
Yeah.
So check out those videos. We have them per purchase on our website, musiceffectdesign.com. And I'm sure the two of you feel the same. We could talk about this for 30 years and never get tired of talking about it. So if you've got questions, you can email us. And we'd love to talk to you.